Welcome to the online lab. Today we're going to talk about APA formatting. We're going to learn today about manuscript format, about in-text citations, and about the works cited page. We're going to talk about the manuscript format pertaining to just how a paper should be laid out with the headings, page numbers, and title, font spacings, and margin. And to do that, we're going to go into the OWL Purdue software program. Okay, so in the OWL online writing lab, I'm going to show you something that it's always available to you, and you'll be able to get access to this anytime you need it. It's a really valuable resource for you. Okay, and in it is a sample paper, and they break down the paper and they talk about each part of it. You're going to see that the very front of the paper is the running head. You only need the word running head, these words right here on the first page. I don't know why. Both MLA and APA have this thing. The convention is it says running head, and then you have the title of the paper, and that's in all caps. So if you look at this, the green text boxes give you explanations, and the blue text boxes contain directions. So that's how they've broken it down. Okay. So you're also going to have page numbers, and you can you do have a choice whether you put the page number on the first page or whether you begin numbering with page 2 on the second page. But I usually just go ahead and have people start with page 1. It helps them. The running head cannot exceed 50 characters. So you're going to have to make sure that your title isn't too long. And it gives you right here this instruction. It says the running head's title should be in capital letters. The running head should be flush left, and page number should be flush right. So this page number is flush right. This running head is flush left. Okay. On subsequent pages, and I'll show you that right now, you've got just no words running head, just the title and the page numbers. Okay. APA style requires an abstract, which is a brief summary of the paper, allowing readers to quickly know what it's about, but not all teachers require an abstract. I've had more students turn abstracts into me that I didn't assign. It's fine. I'm not going to deduct points because they did an abstract. It's good to learn how to do one, because if you ever get into a place where you're publishing papers, you absolutely will be writing an abstract. If you write a thesis, you'll be writing an abstract. And even longer semester-long papers or research papers, there's an abstract. But I've had people give me an abstract for a 5-paragraph essay. It's really not necessary. But that's just me, and not all professors are the same. So you might want to check and just say, do you need me to write an abstract? APA requires it. Are you going to be looking for one? So if you do that, we'll come back to the abstract in a minute. I want to still talk to you about the title page. APA does, in its formatting, use a title page. MLA does not. So that's one of the differences between the two styles. And as you can see here, the title is centered. Varying definitions of online communication and their effects on relationship research. So that's the whole title, those 2 lines, okay? And then the author's name, Elizabeth L. Angeli, and then the institution name. So these are all double spaced and they're all centered, okay? Also, everything is in Times Roman, Times New Roman font. And that's just the APA default. So you can ask your professor if they follow that, and if they care about what font size you use, and I'll tell you, you'll find a big variety. Some professors do not care. Other professors say, no, APA says Times New Roman, that's what I want to see. So you're in an academic setting, you need to follow the academic rules, but the professor's rules are actually more important concerning things like typeface and things like that. So if there's an author's note, if this was going to be a paper prepared for publication, then this is necessary. If you're not preparing for publication, you do not need it. Okay? This is how how people can get in touch with the author, what department they're in, if the research was supported by a grant. And then there's also the correspondence information. In a paper, even if there's more than one author, there's always a corresponding author identified. And that's the author that has agreed to take questions, field inquiries, things of that nature, and then they present their both mail address and their email address. But really, when you're writing a regular paper for a regular class, it's not necessary. So in that sense, all you really need is this information here on the top line and the title and your name centered. Okay? You don't need the author's note. So again, this is the abstract that you may or may not need, depending on your professor. And what right down here when you say keywords, these are the terms that would help your article come up in a search. Okay, so these are the keywords that if you were being placed into a database, that the coder would use to tag your article. So this article, we can tell computer-mediated communication and face-to-face communication are the tags that will help somebody trying to find information on this subject. Okay, it says an abstract should be between 150 to 250 words. And that's correct. So if you read these little pieces of information, you get some facts that will help you. You use abbreviations and acronyms used in the paper should be defined in the abstract. So in other words, if you use something here, if you look at this FTF, large F, small t, large f, that's the acronym for face-to-face. So that's coming up here, computer-mediated communication, CMC, okay? Internet and non-internet. Those are the terms that are used in the article. And so once you start reading the article, you already know kind of what to look for. So here we're on the actual first page. Again, you have the head, the running head that's there. It's really sort of above the line, in the sense that once you've clicked onto the headers and footers, you've put this in. You don't have to retype it each time. It just comes for you on each page. And the page numbers are numbered automatically for you in that document as well. The name of the paper is right there, and there it is centered. Okay? The title of the paper is centered and not bolded according to APA. APA has very strict rules about what's bolded, what's not bolded. Again, your professor may or may not agree with these things. They may or may not have the same belief system. Okay? It depends if they're talking about how many, if the article has 3 to 5 authors, write out all the articles' names the first time they appear. This is just standard. This is APA format, and we've talked a little bit about that before. We can go into more detail about it. So the introduction presents the problem that the paper addresses. It's the first part of an APA paper. However, they do not require you to have the heading that says introduction because they say that it's obvious. Okay. It does tell you that in-text citations that are direct quotes should include the author's name, the publication year, and the page numbers. If you are paraphrasing a source, APA includes you to use page numbers, but it doesn't require them. And again, if you're doing it for publication, all of the APA rules are written for people who are publishing in academic journals. They are not necessarily written for people turning in classroom papers. So that's something that you can discuss with your professor as well. And you can see, keep going, we do have the 1-inch margins throughout the whole paper. And you keep double space throughout. You do not add additional spaces. You do not put additional spaces between 2 paragraphs. Everything is double spaced. And here you can see your running head and your page numbers just keep going. Some people want you to have your last name with the page number in case the pages come apart. The professor would know that it was yours. Again, that's at your professor's discretion. APA does not require it. If you are developing a level 1 heading, APA has, I think, 5 levels of heads. And it basically is a way of cluing with your eyes what the level of importance is of that heading. This tells you a level 1 head, we're starting a brand new section. It's just the heading right under a title. Okay, so it's very important, and it's also centered. But it's not bigger, but it is bold. Okay, here's a level 2 head. So it's a subhead of a level 1 head. So within discussion, here's a subhead: limitations of the studies and technological limitations. Actually, number 2, and then number 3 is a sub of number 2. So this is the APA way to break down information visually. Okay, you can go ahead and do that. When you come to conclusions and further study, you can also center that and put it in bold. Okay, now we get to the really interesting part. Okay, and that is the reference page. It can be called works cited, and it can be called references. Either one is technically correct. What you want to look at is how APA handles this page. And again, over time, you will get really good at this. I like this page because it only has 4 examples. It's not too overwhelming. Just a few things to keep in mind are that APA is still double-spaced here, also on the reference page. It does use a hanging indent, just like MLA. So you do have to get that set up in your computer for the hanging indent, or you're just going to have to move the line in after every line after the first line. It begins with the last name of the author in alphabetical order, comma, and then the first initial, period, and if there's a second initial, period and comma. Then the same thing with the last name of the second author, comma, B, period, comma, and ampersand. That's called an ampersand, and it stands for the word and, Kraut, comma, R, period. So that's an example of 3 authors, okay? Then the year, 2002, period. The quality of online social relationships, period. Now notice, this is a really distinct feature of APA style, and it takes people a long time to catch this. But the quality of online social relationships only has 1 capital letter, and that's the first letter of the first word. Everything else is lowercase. That's not common for the names of books. Names of books usually are in capitalization. The quality online social and relationships would normally be capitalized, but not in APA style. So you just have to get used to it. Then the journal, communication of the ACM. That's a journal name, and that's going to be in italic type because all journals and newspapers are in italic type. 45 is the volume, and issue in parentheses is the issue. I'm sorry, numeral 7 in parentheses is the issue. Comma, 103 to 108, those are the page numbers, and it all ends in a period. It's like a sentence. Well, many sentences kind of strung together there, okay? So here again, the last names of the authors, the year, the title, Friendships Through. Why is the IM capitalized? It's because it's an acronym. It's instant messaging. It's like anything else, like ACM is an acronym. Acronyms are capitalized, even though that goes against the rules. Then there's a colon. So the first word after the colon is also considered like the beginning of a sentence, and it is capitalized, examining the relationships between instant messages and intimacy. Period. Journal of Computer-Mediated Communications, comma, and this just has volume 10, comma, pages 38 through 48, period. So again, the whole thing is laid out, double-spaced, hanging indent, alphabetized, last names of authors, first initial only, year in parentheses, title with just the first name, first word of the title capitalized, and then any newspaper or journal with italic type, and the numbers set up in this way. Okay, so it's really important that you double check in your paper that every time that you've used a source in your paper, that it also has a corresponding entry on this page. APA style also gives you a way to put the appendix together and how to do tables and graphs and how to include this information. Okay, so that is a source that is with you forever, this OWL English Purdue EDU. You really will get a lot out of that, and I encourage you to go look at that whenever you are putting together a paper. Okay, we're back. In-text citations. In APA, we use parenthetical, which just means the information is put in between parentheses that correspond to the full source information listed in the works cited page. Okay? Punctuation goes before the closing punctuation. So if you see, here is the sentence, here is my sentence, here is my quote, Willers, 2015, there's the period right there. The treatment of the author is by the author last name and first initial with a period. We just saw that in the OWL example. There's a comma between the author and the year. There's the treatment of the year. You include the year of publication. Previously, we talked to you about MLA and how it does not use the year. But because APA is from American Psychological Association and it's used by social sciences, in these fields, the year is very important. Frankly, something from 2010 could practically be outdated. So we're looking for very current resources and very current research. We'd want to know if something was from, 1985. That would be interesting. We'd want to know that it was still true, so we'd probably want to see another source more modern. But we do always put the year. Page numbers are only required when a direct quotation is included. You can put them for a paraphrase, but they're not required. There's some pretty handy little tables that will help you with some of this information. APA is very specific about what to do when there's more than one author. And believe it or not, it differs the first time you mention it to any subsequent mentions of those same authors. So the first time two authors are mentioned, for example, if it was Carson and Willers, it would be 2014. The second and subsequent, it would still be Carson and Willers. APA feels like you can handle that. You can handle mentioning everybody. 3 authors, you do the same thing. You list all. 4 or 5 authors, Carson, Willers, Starn, and Gooch, the first time, but every time after that, it's just Carson et al. The same thing, well, not exactly the same thing, but with 6 or more authors from the first mention, it's just the first author. You do not have to, if there's 6 or more authors, you don't have to list them all, even the first time. So that's a little confusing. There are several resource guides to help you with this and several very handy charts that the Writing Center has. And it's the sort of thing you want to, nobody's really expecting you to memorize this, but just be aware that it changes from the first to the subsequent, which means anytime after the first. And we've already talked a little bit about the works cited page. The basic manuscript format is the same. You use consecutive page numbers. If it keeps going, if you could have a 10-page works cited page, but you just keep numbering the pages. But do begin it on a new page. Again, title it works cited or references. List the sources in alphabetical order by author's last name. No numbers, no bullet points. Double space always, and do use a hanging indent. So today we've covered some more manuscript format for APA style. We've looked at APA in-text citations and the APA works cited page. I know you'll have additional questions, and the best way to get those questions answered is to look either on one of the resources that we've shown you, or consult the Writing Center, or consult your instructor. And that's it today for the APA.